What is up, everyone? Welcome to the DropTuned podcast. Back here again to talk about all things music business for independent artists with your two wonderful hosts. I am one of those hosts, Scott Kelly.
And I'm the other host, Jake Carbonera.
Arguably the more wonderful host, Jake.
Oh, shut the heck up, Scott.
Oh,
No.
shucks.
No. You got that wrong. No, you.
Oh, Jake, how is your day going, my friend?
Oh, my days. It was a day. It was a day.
It was a day.
Yeah. How was your my days?
You know, it was good. It was good. Just worked my job, went to the gym, and now I'm here sipping on a bottle of Guinness, chatting it up with you. So it's pretty good.
Hell yeah, man. Yeah. I also worked my job, and then I took a nap after work, just a 20-minute nap, and I'm like, all right, I'm good for the rest of the night. Yeah, and you know what? I'm sipping on water.
There you go.
Yeah,
I should probably
making pee.
get some of that too.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, hey, you know, before we jump in, I thought it would just be fun to do a little check-in and just see, you know, what's doing it for you this week as far as music. What have you been listening to since we're talking about the music industry? We might as well also talk about some music. So what's on your playlist today or this week?
Pulling up my Spotify. I've been listening to the new Silent Planet record, Super Bloom, a lot. Very good. Have you checked it out yet?
No, I have not checked it out yet.
It's a really good vibe. I like it a lot. Specifically their single and third song on the record called Collider. So good. Dude, riffs up the wall and just the overall vibe of it, man. It's just really, really good. I've been a fan of Silent Planet for years, but I really like what they crafted with this one.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's at the top of my list right now. But what about you?
A whole lot of stuff. The new Architect single.
Yes.
Just came out.
We should talk about that.
Killer. The new Youngblood Ollie Sykes single, Happier.
I haven't checked that out yet.
That's a really good one. And I think to get away from rock and metal, there is a record from an Irish artist named John Francis Flynn that I've been listening to a little bit, which is very, very good. Kind of like a reinterpretation of some Irish folk music, but it's a great record. Worth checking out. Very interesting. Very interesting stuff.
Hell yeah. Dude, that's awesome.
But yeah, cool. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, got a lot of variety over here, you know?
There we go. We're trying to please everyone a little bit.
Oh, tell me, you want to talk about pleasing, huh? Yeah.
Oh, my days. All right, my friend. So we were chatting a little bit just before we hopped on here and started recording about the topic for this week. So why don't you give the people just a quick overview as to what we're going to talk about today before we jump in?
Ooh, big topic. End of year, wrapping up 2023 and getting our wheels going for 2024. So a lot of planning. We want to talk about what we're up to with Still World and the podcast.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So, you know, this is the second episode that we've done together. And when we were texting a little bit a few days ago about, hey, what should we do the second episode on? I just sort of figured this would be timely for one. I also think that this time of year, and partially understandably so, but tends to be one, I think, where musicians and the music industry kind of all go to sleep for like a month and a half.
Yeah.
And everyone needs their rest, and everyone should prioritize their mental health. Absolutely. But it's also a time of year, I think, where we can take advantage of a little bit of the downtime and do some valuable reflection and planning. So just thought it might be an interesting topic from that perspective.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, and I guess just to continue with that train of thought briefly, right? Like what you do at that time, I think, is quite different this time of year. Like, I don't necessarily think that it's the best time of year to put out new music.
No.
And try to get attention for new things. I think that people right now are very focused, like around the holidays, at least here in the US and the majority of the Western world, very focused on, nostalgia is really big at this time of year. Mm-hmm. Like seasonal music is, of course, really big, and people are busy with events with friends and family. And all that being said, I think there's just a lot happening that splits people's attention in ways that it's not necessarily being spent the rest of the year. And so for those reasons, I don't think it's like a great time to put out new music unless you're, of course, an artist who can put out Christmas tunes or New Year's tunes or whatever that might be, right? But so I think with that being said, like, what are the types of things that we can focus on? And so that's sort of what we're talking about here today. I think it's not so much like pushing new stuff, but just like you kind of already alluded to, prepping a little bit. So yeah. What I did, and I maybe I should have saved this as a surprise, but I just thought this would be like a fun little exercise. I mentioned to Jake before we started recording, I went to everyone's new friend these days, Chat GBT, and
he's my best friend.
Just for comedy purposes, more than anything. I don't necessarily trust Chat GBT for most things in my day,
right.
But I did ask, hey, what are the types of things that an artist could be doing at the end of the year to sort of take advantage of that time and to prepare for the new year? And it gave me some thoughts. So I thought it could be kind of fun. Yeah, I thought it could be kind of fun just to chat through some of these and see what's valuable.
Let's do it.
If there is anything valuable. I'll also just say at the top of this, some of this is hot trash. I'm just not even going to bring up.
You should. I want to hear if it's anything worth mentioning. Just even
okay. We'll go through the list just to maybe, if nothing else, dismiss it.
Okay, for sure.
All right. And we'll try not to spend like too long on this, but
for sure.
Okay. First recommendation, and this one I can get behind. Reflect on the past year. It says, as an artist, you should be encouraged to reflect on your accomplishments, challenges, and growth within the current year. Discuss the importance of learning from experiences so that you can set realistic goals for the future.
Yeah, I can get behind that.
What are your thoughts?
I could definitely get behind that. Yeah. No, and just in general, like even like personally, looking at your own personal goals at the end of the year is good. And setting yourself up for next year's goals. But yeah, definitely as like a band or artist, like it's definitely good to look back because sometimes you kind of like get lost in the forest. You don't see the trees. So, or whatever that saying is, but
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's good to like just get a big picture of the year and see everything that you accomplished or any opportunities you can find potentially for next year. And just keep growing. It's good to have benchmarks.
Yeah, absolutely. So goals are one thing, right? And we're going to we're going to talk about, specifically planning goals a little bit here, I think, in the next point, just to preview what comes up here a little bit. But let's talk a little bit more about the reflection piece. Right. So from your perspective, and I'll chime in based on what you might say here, Jake, but, what does it potentially look like, do you think, for us or for other artists listening to reflect on wins or losses from the year to date, and what should people be thinking about as far as like takeaways going into 2024?
Yeah, I mean, something that I would I would think about is like how basically looking at your following on social media and like how much have you grown? You know, did you find any success in like certain videos you made, or did you increase your following, especially like on Spotify or stream like audio streaming platforms? Like, did you see that kind of growth? Is it steady? Is it kind of quiet? Do you feel like you could have posted more, promoted more, advertised more? So it's really just like a lot of things like that that my mind kind of goes to right away. But that's mostly for
totally
like,
no.
oh yeah, that's mostly for like setting yourself up for like a benchmark for next year and try to double it. You know, if you have 1,000 monthly listeners on Spotify, try to double it next year. Or, you know, same thing for social media, you know, like, can you double it? Can you improve certain videos, certain content and things like that? Do you want to try different things too, to try to spark more growth? Yeah. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think I largely agree. I think when it comes to reflection, the most important piece is kind of what you alluded to there in what's the correlation like between the action and the result, right? Like it's perfectly fine, and I think we'll talk about this in a second, something that people should do. But like you said, like set goals on, you know, what did you do year prior and what do you want to do next year when it comes to certain types of numbers, like whether that be Spotify streams, TikTok followers, whatever. But I think it's really hard to actually figure out how to work towards those objectives if you don't understand like what drove the results from the year before. So kind of like you said, like looking at what the result was for say year 2023, let's take like Instagram followers, for example, and assessing your content, having a conversation with your bandmates if you're in a band, or just conversation with yourself if you're a solo artist. And just, you kind of have to be kind of brutally honest, I think, in the sense that we want to essentially come to a place where we can understand, hey, I grew by X amount of Instagram followers, for example, and I posted on average this number of times a week and did content type X, Y, and Z. And you might need to dig into your analytics and your data a little bit to get at some of this. And, you know, that can be time consuming and to some people boring, but I think it's a worthwhile exercise to understand like what was the best performing piece of content. You know, so you can take those pieces of knowledge going into the new year being well informed, so you can figure out like how to replicate or improve upon those outcomes that you saw the year prior. So yeah, I think reflection, absolutely key. Understanding, you know, where your shortcomings are, like you said, maybe you didn't post enough, things like that. And just so you can kind of change and improve upon those behaviors. But yeah,
definitely. And I want to go off of that point you made about looking at your analytics. Like, it's super, I think it's super important and very beneficial to see your numbers, see your data, how you're doing, how your content's doing on social media, where you're falling short, and either, you know, disregard the kind of content that doesn't do good and just focus on and double down on the content that is doing good. And then it makes you, when you understand your analytics and the different metrics, it allows you to get a better picture of how people are resonating with your content. And that's super important for growth. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Cool. So yeah, reflection, dig deep and be honest.
Reflections is a really good band, by the way. Love that band.
All right, let's move on.
Let's do it.
So the next point Chat GBT had for us was
Mr. Chat.
Mr. Chat. Mr. GPT.
Whoa.
It's Mr. GPT, but you can call me Chat.
Yeah, my father's name is Chad. You can call me GPT. Oh, that's great. Yeah.
I haven't had enough Guinness for that just yet. Okay, so what GPT said. Goal setting for the new year. Artists should set specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-based goals.
Smart goals.
Smart goals, yes. Yep. Yeah, that's what it says here. It says smart.
Ooh.
You and Mr. Chat are on the same page.
Hey, I went to marketing school.
It then says, emphasize the significance of both short-term and long-term objectives. So, okay, so I have some mixed feelings about this one.
I want to hear it. I want to hear yours first.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I'll kick this one off.
Yeah.
So, let it be said that largely I do agree with our artificially intelligent friend here. In the sense that I, as I sort of might have alluded to, I think goal setting is important. In the vein of reflection, as we were just talking about, I think if we were to bring this back around to, our band, Still World, I think goal setting is something that we have not done well to date. But we had a quick chat a couple of days ago as a band in our text thread, and I think that we all kind of shared a sentiment that that's something that we want to change, and we've started kind of talking about goals and stuff, which is great. Where did this go? I also agree with this concept of setting both short-term and long-term goals. Somewhat self-explanatory. I don't need to elaborate there. And I do agree with this like SMART goals philosophy, but maybe it's not that I necessarily disagree with the computer, but I think there's something that's missed here, and maybe this is the more human element of goal setting, hence why Chat GBT doesn't suggest this. But I also think that it is, dare I say, important to set lofty goals as well.
What do you mean by lofty?
So, okay, so let's bring this back around to like our band, just to kind of contextualize this a bit more. So, I think that, excuse me. I think that, sorry, one sec. My throat's really dry.
Wet that throat up.
More Guinness. So I think that there's building blocks and there's stages to planning and goal setting. And I think it's important to have like an end goal, right? Because when you think about like, hey, where do I want to see, our band, for example, in a year's time, in 5 years' time, however far out you want to go. Maybe you want to go as far as 10 or whatever. But I think unless you know what those long-term goals are, and maybe that's what I mean by lofty, is it more those like long-term visions?
Yep.
I don't think you can really start to put in place the most effective short-term goals. Or those like measurable SMART goals, right? Like, okay, so for example, I was doing just some personal goal setting and planning a couple days ago. And bear with me here a sec. Let me find my note where I took this down. So I broke down some stuff into both like 6 months out from last week, a year out, and 5 years out. And for example, there's a couple things about the band on there. So let's kind of go the furthest out, and just to kind of illustrate my point. So I said in 5 years time, I would love to see that Still World is participating in some degree of regular touring on either small headline tours or support slots on larger tours. And that between now and then, we've done a tour of Europe at least once.
Oh, that'd be sick.
Right. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But so
yeah.
so that's 5 years out, and like that's a big goal. And I mean, we can go further out than that, and things that'd be like, oh yeah, I'd love if we could play like a certain venue in a certain country, or like blah blah blah. But I think I want it to be quite specific in what I was setting, what I was kind of like writing down. And so now that I sort of have that vision for myself, I can start to dissect, okay, well, what are the types of things that need to take place between now and then in order for that to be a potential outcome, right? Mm-hmm. And so with those things in mind, that's when I started to think about, well, what are some of maybe like the shorter term goals, like the 1 year goals? And that this is the part of the conversation that you saw in our text thread, where I said, hey, I have some ambitious things I want to throw out there for Still World in 2024. And then just to share those points, I had said, release between 3 and 5 songs, maybe a new EP. That might not sound like a lot for some people listening, but in the spirit of honesty and transparency, like we just have not been as fast to release music or as consistent as we potentially should be or would like to be. So that's just kind of something I wanted to set out there. Now you'll notice that is kind of a much more attainable goal, rather than saying like, hey, in 2024 we're gonna tour Europe. Like, let's be totally honest, that's not gonna happen. So this is where we're starting to get into things that are smaller in scale but more measurable, as our artificially intelligent friend has suggested. Like, we can track and anticipate if it's over the course of the year, like based on our progress, hey, are we going to get 5 songs out before the end of the year? Right.
Yep.
The next thing I had on there was play at least 2 shows. Similarly, and part of this was just as a result of, our show schedule got interrupted with COVID and lockdowns and not knowing when all that was going to change. I moved across the country, and so there's a distance factor now. So playing shows requires more planning for us than it does for some other artists. But if we could play 2 good, bigger shows, I think that would be effective. It would be successful for us in that regard. And by the end of 2024, have at least 2,000 monthly listeners on our Spotify profile.
Yeah.
Right. So these are now goals for 2024. And, I think I'd love to maybe in this forum hear your thoughts on those as well. And if there's anything you'd like to add or change about those, be curious. But yeah, so like for me, that's sort of how I envision goal setting for the upcoming year, like for us, and for, other artists can kind of like take their interpretation and their version of that. But I think that's a pretty effective way to set goals. And then once you have those goals, you can start to break down like the tasks that will contribute towards them. And that's where like the more measurable piece probably comes into play. But yeah. But yeah, I just talked for a long time, so I'd love to get your thoughts on all that.
Yeah. Well, for SMART goals, I never actually was a fan of them. Because I don't know, something about, I think it's because it was like I had to do them so much in business school. It just like makes me totally turned off from using it, like in my personal life. And I typically set my own goals, like personal goals, like outside of the band and all that, in the same kind of way that you explained, but it's more like, it's still pretty broad. Like, my goal for 2023 this year was to buy a new car. And I actually bought it in the first week of January of this year. So I
There you
crossed
go.
that
And you're
one.
like, I'm chilling now.
Oh, I'm like, hell yeah, that's one, got one. Usually I set like 10 goals for the year. I actually haven't reviewed that from this year, but I'm going to do that soon. But aside from that, yeah, it's usually like simple stuff like that, or save, another $500 a month or something like that as a goal. Like it's stuff like that. Like there's always like an action word at the beginning of it, like save, create, buy, or whatever it is. That's usually how I do it, just to have like some sort of like action to the sentence. It makes me want to like do it,
Totally.
But yeah, that's my thoughts on SMART goals. There's better ways to do it, I think, but yeah. So as far as the goals you pointed out in the group chat, I'm actually going to pull them up just so I have it for reference. But yeah, like definitely aligned with all of them. Wow, we text a lot. I'm just trying to scroll up. What day was it?
Here, I'll just copy the text and send it to you.
Oh wait, got it.
All right.
Okay. Release between 3 to 5 songs, maybe a new EP. Yeah, 100%. Would love to release a new EP. Our last EP that we released was 2020, and that was like 3.5 years ago. And it was during the most interesting time of that year, so I feel like it probably wasn't the best time to drop an EP, even though I remember we had the day we wanted to release it, but then we pushed it out. Some stuff was going on in June of that year, so we were like, yeah, probably not, shouldn't do this right now. I think I remember that correctly. I think we were going to release it earlier in the summer. But yeah, we'd love to do another EP. Play at least 2 shows. Oh, dude, I want to get on stage. I want to get the fuck up there, man, like just for shows, like definitely like some more specific goals I had in mind for the band, and we're all aligned with it too, is to have a more consistent rehearsal schedule. So we used to call it band practice. Now we're calling it rehearsal. We had that chat about it like a few weeks ago, and it makes sense. We want to practice on our own. I've been practicing on a weekly basis. I practiced last night. I used my new in-ear monitor system with me just to practice, and standing up too. I used to just practice sitting down, but I'm like, I should probably practice standing up kind of thing,
It is different.
Oh, it hits different. And I also texted in the group chat last night. I'm like, I play better with the strap a little bit up higher. So yeah, my guitar is going to be at my nipples now. So it's going to cover those up. But yeah, like calling a rehearsal makes sense. Like you want to run through it as if you're playing a show, and instead of like going there just to like learn a song, teach each other kind of thing. So yeah, so definitely like having us play tighter together is gonna just be making these shows a lot better, as well as having the inner monitor system, like the rig that we're slowly putting together, is gonna help a ton, dude. I'm so stoked to be on ears with all of you.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. And then the last goal you said was 2K monthly Spotify listeners by the end of the year. I think we could do more. I think we could do more than that. It's a good benchmark for sure. I know it's obtainable for sure. And the steps that lead us to that would be, to me, pushing out more content. Because we've always had this habit of like going dark for months and then posting a lot, just having more like consistency with that should help a lot.
And we're getting in there.
100%. Yeah. And
we're getting there. There's been improvement there. Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
But yeah,
been killing it.
But yeah, like I thought, again, I guess just for some context, because, this is the first time we're having like a face-to-face conversation about these. But I mean, some of that is well, I guess you could say all of that is like actually somewhat intertwined, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, let let's just be completely honest. Like, one of the necessary tools for success in modern music is your Spotify following.
Mm-hmm.
It's the biggest platform. It's where people by default will go to find new music, to listen to their current favorite songs. Um, and although it is pittances, it is a way to make some degree of income as an artist if you can push it and grow it enough. So if we sort of like look at that as being as many people do these days, and I don't necessarily agree with this wholeheartedly, but for consistency's sake, let's just say that like your Spotify numbers are the benchmark for how successful you are as an artist,
Mm-hmm.
right? Let's, for the time being, let's just take that as statement of fact. But I have my own personal opinions about how we might reinterpret that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like a lot of this ties into that, right? So sort of the way I started to put these things together is that if we're talking about ultimately we want to be able to grow our Spotify so that more people listen to our music, so we have more fans. When we have more fans, we sell more merch, right? All of that stuff, one thing bleeds into another. Mm-hmm. So obviously releasing between 3 and 5 songs, that is directly related to, those Spotify numbers. When you put out new music, you're getting placed on like Discover Weekly playlists, whatever it might be. You're finding, new people are finding your music. And the more often you put out new music, the more often you're getting that additional exposure for more people to find your songs, right? Mm-hmm. And with that in mind, I personally am more in favor of singles these days as opposed to like albums or EPs. Mm-hmm. But what I will say is that, and people might have their own opinions about this, and that's totally fine. I am just very curious about the impact that potentially working with like a PR agent, what that could potentially do for us, mm-hmm. in addition to our own independent marketing efforts.
Yeah.
And it is really hard to get press coverage for putting out a single. Right? Like when you think about people who work in media, people who do reviews, who write articles for like music publications, things of that nature. Think of like written content, right? Like imagine like what's a written publication in our world, like a Kerrang, Rock Sound, Metal Hammer, mm-hmm. things of that nature, right? Imagine you go on one of those websites and there's like a little blog post or an article about a new release. The written content that gets put out about like a new release for a single is maybe going to be like that long. Mm-hmm. There's not a whole lot to say about an individual song from like a journalistic perspective. Mm-hmm. Whereas there's a bit more of a story to tell when you are releasing, say like an EP. And so I think kind of combining those two approaches, like having more music, putting out singles for that consistency, for that algorithm goodness, right, that comes from Spotify, essential. But I think in addition to that, maybe compiling those singles and putting them onto an EP at some point in the year unlocks like an additional component of getting your name out there through like press and additional media attention that I think would just be harder to come by otherwise. Mm-hmm. So yeah, hence the releases there. I think then as well, like obviously playing shows, very self-explanatory. If you're getting out there in front of new people, you're finding new fans, people who can see you firsthand, hear you live in the most authentic way, and buy merch from you and all that. I think playing shows is the most direct path to new fans. And when I say fans, I mean fans. Like someone finding an article about your EP or someone finding your song on Discover Weekly, I really consider that person to be like a listener. even if they save your track, they're not necessarily a fan, because someone having one of your songs in the playlist doesn't mean that they're going to be willing to spend money on merch, doesn't mean that they're going to buy a ticket to come out to your show or to your tour. But I think it's really easy to convert people into full-fledged fans when they discover you at a show. And so that's kind of like the way I'm thinking about all this, like looking at the multifaceted aspects of what it is to be an artist, and use these as things we can kind of like pull together to ultimately contribute towards like a growth in our music career, whether we're measuring that through Spotify or otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, dude. 100%. Yeah. Yeah. And
so,
it's definitely good to think about like what channels you're promoting your stuff through. Like you got social media, you got Spotify you can promote through. There's some promotion features on there. You got PR, you got, I don't know, word of mouth. There's just a lot of channels, and you just got to think about it like holistically all together, like everything as like a one big marketing plan to push your stuff out there. Yeah.
Let's move on to the next point.
Let's do it.
So we I don't think we're going to spend any time on this. We've sort of already had this discussion through these other points, but point number 4 from Chat GBT is building a strategic plan. Discuss the creation of a strategic plan for the upcoming year, covering aspects such as marketing, collaborations, and content creation. Emphasize the need for flexibility and adaptability in the plan. Now, largely, I think this is very self-explanatory for people who are listening to a podcast like this. I think building a strategic plan is almost like the whole idea, the whole thing, what we're talking about here. But I will say one thing that is mentioned here that we haven't touched on yet is I think that the end of the year, December time, for example, is a great moment to plan content for the new year, and where it might be relevant and possible to sort of batch create as much of that content as you can while there's not a whole lot else going on, so you're ready to go in January.
100%. And I also like that collaboration point that Mr. GPT mentioned. To me, like collaboration in that instance could be like submitting your track to a reaction channel or channels. You're kind of essentially collaborating with another creator, and that's another avenue, another channel you can call it for your marketing bundle, marketing plan, whatever you want to call it.
Totally.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think, to that point too, maybe this is kind of a side note, but I heard an interesting statistic a couple days ago that, and this kind of goes back and as additionally to why this time of year might not be the right time to be pushing new stuff on people. If you look at the ad rates on like Facebook ad manager, or I think even TikTok right now, just because there's so much big money from corporations in advertising in the run up to Christmas, and people trying to entice spending for the holidays. Excuse me. The CPMs for social media ads this time of year are much higher than they are other times in the year. So it's not necessarily the most effective time of year to be pushing new content, especially via paid marketing channels to try and bring in new listeners. Hence why this might be a more beneficial time to do all that planning. Because I guess apparently, according to this source that I was listening to, between December 26th, so the day right after Christmas, up until January 30th, advertising costs on social media is the lowest it'll ever be in the year. So if you can take this time where advertising costs are really high, plan your content, make your content, and then come tail end of December, early January, dive into your new promo campaign for maybe the single that you've been holding on to, or just for new social content that you're trying to push your music through. That's going to be like the most effective time to really maximize the number of people that you can get to check you out.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, no, I'm well aware of that. CPMs definitely do spike. Yeah, I work at a advertising agency, but CPMs, for those you don't know, it's cost per thousand. The M means thousand, so that's why it's CPM, not CPT. So, but yeah,
Some
so
Latin.
that's what's that?
I said there's some Latin.
Yeah, it was in Latin.
I think that's where it comes from. Like M in like Latin is like meal.
Oh yeah,
like, anyway.
Mil. Yeah, MILLE. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, something like that.
True. But yeah, no, like you said, planning your content during that time of high CPMs, high rates. Like, why advertise during it? Because you're just gonna spend more than you need to when you can just wait like a month later and advertise. Because really, the advertising space during that time is my dog keeps scratching my door. I don't know if you heard it, but
all good.
Yeah, as I was saying, why not just like you said, spend time to like just check out or create your content and then post it beginning of the year when CPMs are the lowest, because that advertising space is just taking up from e-commerce trying to sell you stuff for Christmas. So
totally.
Yeah, 100%, man.
Cool. Point number 5. Utilizing December effectively. Share tips on maximizing the current month, such as releasing holiday-themed content, engaging with the audience, and optimizing social media presence. You should be encouraged to leverage the festive season for promotions and collaborations. Thoughts?
I missed that beginning part. Your audio cut out. I just want to hear that one more time.
So, sorry, I read this verbatim, but the way I asked the question led to a specific phrasing of the response. So it's basically suggesting that artists could release holiday-themed content.
No.
It's very vague, but it just says engage with your audience.
What the fuck, GPT?
And optimize your social media presence. I think this is one of those junk points. We don't really have to get into this, but
yeah, I mean, there's some bands I see that, like August Burns Red. I mean, they're a Christian metalcore band, big on Christmas, releasing Christmas themed metal music. There's some bands who have holiday shows, like Hot Mulligan. That's one. They have a yearly show in Michigan. August Burns Red, I'm pretty sure, has one. I saw Lorna Shore posting like Christmas themed like merch the other day. So I guess that kind of, if it fits, I don't know, that's what you like. If you love Christmas that much, like.
Yeah. Well, I guess if nothing else, like I think the merch thing is a little bit separate, and this is probably like a point that is relevant to more people. Like, if you're an artist who is in the position where you have people buying your merch on a pretty regular basis, then this actually can be a great time of year to not necessarily put out new music, as we've been talking about, but it's a great time of year to like sell your merch, to run holiday sales, to release new items for people who are already paying attention to you, because people are in that shopping mindset right now, right?
Take advantage of Black Friday.
Yeah, totally. And even though everyone's supposed to be buying gifts for other people right now, people also shop for themselves a lot at this time of year too.
Yeah.
So yeah, that not much else to be said there. When it comes to merch, definitely that is 100%. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Cool. Next point, and maybe you already covered everything with this one, Jake, but point number 6 is networking opportunities. This time of year, there is great potential to network during the holiday season, both online and offline. it doesn't really give us anything else than that. All it says then is it's important to connect with fellow musicians, industry professionals, and fans.
Yeah, it's a very like
it's very vague.
Yeah.
So what do I want to say here? Okay. First point it makes about network during the holiday season, both online and offline.
How?
Sure.
How? Where? Why?
Sure. Just it's important to connect with fellow musicians. Yeah, sure. If you're playing shows, there's not a lot of shows happening outside of like holiday theme stuff this time of year. That might be difficult. Industry professionals, not a chance in hell. No. Everyone who works in an office this time of year, music or otherwise, is about to have their email set to autoresponders saying that they'll be back in like mid-January.
Yeah.
There's no networking to be done with industry professionals right now. And fans, yeah, we've already talked about that. Nothing else to say there. Mm-hmm. Anything you want to add, or should we just move along?
Let's just move along. Fuck that.
All right. Point number 7. I haven't read this far yet, so we're going into unknown territory. I don't know what's on this list from this point forward. Financial planning. It's important. Hang on, what the fuck? Okay, it basically just says financial stability is important for independent artists.
You know, I think it might be good. It might be good to see how much he spent. Let's say on advertising, merch, music, like producer, mix, master, stuff like that. So just to see how much he spent against how much he made. You know what I mean?
Right.
It could be good for that, and that also kind of ties into the first, part of this podcast with like reflection. So
totally. And let's expand upon that because I think there's actually something to be said here. So first of all, the second and final point for this financial planning piece from Chat GBT is you should budget, explore revenue streams, and manage your expenses.
Yeah.
Again, very vague, but yes. To your point, I think it's a worthwhile exercise to look at what has been spent over the year prior on things like merch orders, ads you might have ran,
gear.
Well, gear. So, in terms of the point I'm about to make, gear is maybe less important, but
okay,
I totally see what you're saying.
Yep.
Practice spaces, whatever those things might be, so you can forecast sort of for the year ahead and say like, hey, I as an artist, we as a band need to expect to spend like X amount of money. I think in addition to this, if we're sort of viewing this entire podcast maybe through the lens of, hey, we all as independent artists want to get to the point where we're making some kind of money off of this. Like we all want this to be our job, right? And like, for that to be possible, we have to have people streaming music. We maybe have to have like ticket sales. We definitely have to have people buying merch, right? And so I think in going back to like the goal setting and the planning piece, it's just as important then to sort of look to the year ahead and anticipate what am I going to do to drive that revenue? What am I going to do to sell my tickets? What am I going to do to sell my merch? And where do I have to spend money in order to make that happen? Like if I'm dropping like a new line of merch, what is it going to cost me to get it printed? When am I going to do that? Am I going to create ads and stuff around that in order to advertise the fact that I've got new merch? Am I going to create content to build some excitement around it? Things of that nature. And so maybe there's like advertising costs you want to anticipate based on these specific goals that you have in mind for the year. So yeah, financial planning.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Yeah. Okay. Point number 8. Self-care and wellness.
No, you don't have to worry about that. I'm just kidding.
It says mental and physical well-being is important.
Yeah.
Artists should consider self-care ensure that they're should to ensure that they're entering the new year with a positive mindset and creative energy. Now, it's easy to laugh at this one because it's not really an action per se, but it is important, right? Like, we're talking a lot here about, oh, these are the things you should be thinking about. These are the things you should be planning for. But that being said, there's a reason that everyone goes like radio silent this time of year. It is a good time to sort of like just like chill the fuck out and like get some downtime and hang out with friends and family. And I think if we didn't take that time going into a new year full throttle, it's easy to burn out.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's funny that GPT was like, should consider, you know, like, no, you should always prioritize your mental health and self-care. You know, that's the first thing you got to do. And then everything else follows, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Or, I mean, if you want more material to write about, then just, you know, go through a depression, you know?
There you go.
I'm going to cut that part out.
creative energy. Hey, everyone has gone through a phase where they think, you know, if I was just a little bit sad, I'd write a sick song right now.
Yeah, you know, you're right. You know what? I'm going to keep that in, you know? I was
We've all been there. Look. If we were able to effectively communicate our emotions 100% of the time for years and years and years continuously, we wouldn't be musicians.
That is actually very true. Damn. Yeah, damn shit.
You know, I think you kind of have to be a little bit of a weirdo to want to do this all the time.
Oh, yeah. You got to be weird as fuck to go on stage where people look at you and yell shit in a microphone. Yeah. We're a bunch of weirdos.
Yeah. That was actually the last point. I didn't really realize that until right now, but yeah, that's the advice from Chat GBT.
Damn, this was a Chat GBT episode.
Yeah. What do you think? How would you rate how would you rate our artificially intelligent friend's advice out of 10?
Honestly, I would say like a 7. It wasn't too bad. Like
a little vague at times, you know, we expanded upon a lot of it, but I think generally good points.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's all valid points. The networking one, I don't know. You know, it just didn't make sense. That's the only one that stuck out to me that just did not make any sense for this time of year. But everything else, you know.
Yeah. All right.
What do you think about it? What do you give it out of 10?
Yeah, I'll give it a 6. I would have liked if it gave us a little bit more detail.
Yeah.
Some action items would have been helpful.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, beggars can't be choosers, and we got what we got. If nothing else, it gave us a pretty interesting podcast episode, so I'm appreciative of that.
No, it was good. Yeah.
I didn't really anticipate that we were just going to spend our whole episode talking through this, but I think this was fun. This was good.
I enjoyed it very much.
Yeah.
It was a good good skeleton to the episode, so.
It was. Yeah. It was. Okay. I guess you know, maybe before we wrap, we're coming up here in an hour, so there's not a whole lot else to say for this topic, this episode, I think. But you know, maybe let's just bring some of this full circle back around to some real world stuff for a sec.
Mm-hmm.
Jake, what are and we haven't talked about this beforehand, so I'm throwing this at you, but what are we gonna do over the next 2 weeks to plan and prepare for 2024? Give me some specifics.
Yeah, I mean, individually, all of us practicing our parts for our upcoming unbooked shows, just so we're show ready. Definitely need to plan content. Gonna be planning some content for the band. And man, what else is there?
we're planning a video shoot.
Oh yeah, the video shoot that I'm gonna film. Yeah, that's right. That big project. Yeah, we got to work on that.
We have a new single that is recorded. We need to plan the release strategy.
That is also a big thing that I completely forgot
about. That's okay. I have kind of started planning some of this. I have some to-do lists, and you and I will chat about that this week. But
yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah. No, I think that's, what was that, like 4 things?
That was good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything I miss?
No, I'll just add to it. I think that having a very specific marketing strategy is in the cards for us in 2024. Continuing to have like a focus on organic content and just putting out content for content's sake, just because it's fun and entertaining and relevant to our music. But I also think that like having a specific funnel in place, for lack of a better phrase, I know a lot of people will probably hate that word. It sounds very businessy, but planning out how are we going to find new listeners? How are we going to, retarget them once we've confirmed that they've potentially they've listened to our stuff? Are we going to get people on an email list, or where are we going to send them from an email list? We're going to send them links to our merch store and things like that. I think we've definitely talked about a lot of this stuff before, but we haven't really ever actioned on it in a meaningful way. And I think that this is the year where we get some solid systems in place to actually start making some money on this thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm excited to have that discussion with you.
Yeah. But yeah, it's going to be going deep on some of that stuff over the next couple of weeks and figuring it out. So
hell yeah.
Cool. Is any closing thoughts, or is that where we're going to close it down?
Yeah, no, we could close shop for today, but yeah, big point here, reflection.
Yes, reflection and goals.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, everyone. Well, hey, thank you so much to everyone for hanging out with us, spending some time and listening to not our thoughts, but the thoughts of an AI.
Mr. GPT himself.
Yeah. As always, hope this was interesting. If not already, make sure to follow us on socials at DropTuned Pod. If you're listening to this, you can check out the video version on YouTube. Again, DropTuned Pod. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, you can follow us on your podcast app of choice by searching for the DropTuned Podcast. Give us a like, drop us a comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Lots of exciting stuff coming, not only for music in the new year, but for this podcast too. And so we hope you're there to follow along and to learn a little bit along the way and teach us a thing or two as well. So just wanted to put that out there. But thanks everyone for listening, and we will catch you next time.
Thank you. Peace out.
Bye.